Hey, I'm RC and this is the episode 17 about creating a multiplayer game in NodeJs. If you haven't watched the last episodes, then I highly recommend you to do so by clicking the annotation on the screen. So in this video, what I'm planning to work on is the chat. So we already have a global chat system, so if I type something, it's going to be displayed to all the players. However, we display the player ID rather than its name, so it's not really convenient. And another thing I'm planning to work on is being able to send a private message to another player. Before working on the chat, there's a few things I would like to fix. So the first one is adding this code. So I've already covered that in the single player series. So on context menu is when you right click, and right now it opens up the context menu, which is not really convenient. So by adding event prevent default, it's no longer going to do that. So that's quite handy. And there's also a bug with the current version related with the draw score. So right now we draw text over the old text, but we never clear it. So if I log in with another account, for example, BB, and I kill that player, as you can see, we can still see the 0 and the 1, so they are drawn on top of each other. So I need to clear it. And that's what I'm going to do. So exactly like we did over here, but we do it for the UI. There we go. Okay, so now let's work on the chat. So the first thing we will need to do is to add a username property to our player. The entity, I don't believe the entity should have a username because a bullet is an entity and a bullet does not have a username. So instead of putting it in the entity class, we will put it on the player class over here. So we will do something like username equal empty string. Now, when we create a player, what we would like to do is to we already pass a series of parameters over here, and in those parameters there will be the username. So right now it does not have the username, so this would be undefined. So we will modify, check where we actually create the player. And there we are. So this is where we create the player. So what we want to do is to add a username, and yet we still don't have the username. The socket does not have the username. One way to fix the problem would be to add a username property on the socket. The other technique would be to add a parameter. So when we call player on connect, we need to pass the socket used, and we also need to pass the username. And in that case, we would simply need to give it over here, and then we need to check where is player on connect called. Okay, over here. So just a little recap: the client sends us a package. That package contains the username and the password. Then we validate if the username password is correct, and if it's the case, then we call the connect. So if we do data.username, we have access to the username. So long story short, client sends a sign-in package, validate if the password is correct. If so, call on connect with the username and the socket. We create a parameter initialization package that we pass to the player constructor, and the player constructor creates the player and assigns the right username. So right now, though, where was I? Yeah, over here. So this series of functionalities, so everything related with onSocket, so everything here, all the functionalities are added when the player connects to the game. So it hasn't signed in yet. So that's a very important thing to understand, is that the player can call those functions whenever he accesses local host 2000. So even if he's not logged in right now, he can send us a package called send message to server. And this is not what we want, because we only want the player to be able to send packages to the server, well, messages to the server, if he is online. So this functionality, so this command should actually be in the player on connect over here. So this should go here because we only want to allow it's the same thing for key press. We only want to manage key presses, commands, or packages if the player is actually connected. So we are going to add it there. And back then when we created that function, we had a placeholder called player name, which was the socket ID, but now we can simply remove that and use player username. Okay, so let's test what we have created. So node app, server started, login with this player. I type something, and now it's going to say A and then the stuff. And if I log in with BBB and I say something, it's gonna say BBB with the name. There we go. So everything is working as it should. So now what I'm going to work on is sending private messages. So it's a little bit different. It's pretty similar to send a message to server, but now it's going to be send PM to server. So PM is for private messages. So it's going to also send data, but in that case, the data will be a username and a message. So back then it was simply a string with the message, but now we need to know who you're sending the message to and what is the message. So right now the things we have access to is the socket of the guy that sent the message, and we also have access to the player that is also sending the package. So what we are going to do is we are going to create a variable that will be the recipient socket, and by default it's going to be null because we need to verify if there is indeed a player with the username mentioned, because the client can send a message saying, hey, I want to send it to Bob, but Bob is not online, for example, or Bob simply does not exist. We need to know that this is an error, and we need to send a message back saying, hey, the username you tried to send a message to is not online, for example. So by default, we will assume that it does not exist, and then we are going to loop through the list of players. And as soon as we will find a player that has a username equal to the username of the message, then we are going to say, okay, the recipient socket is the socket. Just a little reminder, the I over there is the ID, and the ID of the player and the ID of the socket are the same. So you can interchange the IDs. We could also do something like this, because the ID over here is equal to the I, and it's also equal to the socket ID, and they're all the same. So it's really convenient. So this will work. Loop through all the players. This is the ID of the player. If it matches, then the recipient socket is that. If we have not found anyone with the username provided, what we are going to do is to send a message to the player saying we did not find it, so add to chat. And it's going to be something like the player is not online. Something like that. And if it was found, then what we are going to do is send a message to the recipient saying from player.username. So player.username, don't forget, player is the one that is currently sending the message. So player is the one sending the message. Socket is also the one sending the message. Recipient socket is the one receiving the message. So from this semicolon, and then we can add the message, data.message. So normally a thing we also want to do is the guy that sent the message should also have a to, then the name of the player and a message. So he knows that the message was sent correctly to the player. So I guess that will be pretty much it for that. So yes, we have created the functionality on the server, but now we need to add client code to trigger that, that functionality on the server. So all we need to do is to send we actually need to have something that will have this look. So emit package, and here it's going to be username something and message something. So we need to add that somewhere in our client. And that's what we are going to do. So what I was planning to do is that if the player types at, then the name of the player, comma, and then the message once. So that's the syntax I'm going to do. So whenever a message starts with the at symbol, I will assume that it's a private message. We are going to take everything before the comma and we are going to consider that as a username, and everything after the comma, and we are going to consider that as the message. So we already have the system for chatting. I think it's over here. So we already implemented something similar with the eval server. So if it was starting with a slash, we would consider it as a eval server command. And now if the value 0 is equal to a at, then we are going to consider it as a private message. So how we are going to do, we need to extract the username and the message from something like this. So Bob, actually, let's put username. So there's many ways to do that. Going to take the easiest one, I think. So we are going to slice it from the first character all the way to the first comma. So index of comma. So we're going to select this all the way to that, and then we are going to slice it. So slice is a substring. We select a portion of the string from comma +1. So we don't want to stop it here because we don't want to include the comma, so we do +1 all the way to the end. So don't need to do anything. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, so let's reset the server, and we will want to connect with 3 different accounts. The first one will be called left, there will be mid, and there will be right. So if I type a message in the global chat, everyone should receive the message, so it's working. If I type random stuff as a private message, because it starts with at, it's going to say, hey, the name with random name is not online, this is what we wanted. And if I type left, for example, hey, only the player left received the message. So from mid, hey, and the player to the right did not receive any message. So this is exactly what we wanted. So I guess that will be pretty much it about this video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to click the annotation on the screen to go check out the next video. So thanks a lot for watching, and see ya!